Alrighty, let's go. Hi you guys, this is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube video Q&A of the week. If you're new to this channel, oops, I just kicked my little tripod. Sorry. If you're new to the channel, I'm glad you're here, and I always recommend that you guys check out my website, which is themodernshaman.net. There's just a lot of resources there. If you want to connect with me one-on-one for sessions, this is what I do all time, full time, every day. Maybe not the weekends. I'm with my kiddos and my family on the weekends, but pretty much all the rest of the time, I am a working shaman and seer. I hope those of you guys that would like to tune in like guidance, as well as those of you that would like to train and truly get a sense of power and authority over your own connections with the non-physical world, your own capabilities. So if you're interested in that, please reach out via my website. There are teaching modules on there for instruction through my masterclass portal and links to that portal on my website. And there are links to booking with me, my online calendar, and usually I book out about a month, but I think there's some openings through the end of this month in March. So if you're interested, I would love to sit with you in person here. This is my new office, you guys. See, my little courtyard. This is my little private courtyard. See, it's private, it's a wall. It's always weird to like point in a mirrored fashion. But anyways, they're still landscaping it and fixing it all up, but just getting it set up. This beautiful Tibetan mandala that was a gift from my husband. There's a lot of new coming in, a beautiful new energy. And today is the full moon in Virgo. It's a beautiful energy of like moving and getting things done and getting organized, and we're doing it. So anyways, if you'd like to connect, I would love to sit with you here in my personal office in San Antonio, Texas, or I can do that online via Zoom or on the phone. I do that as well, all over the world. So let's look at the question today. Here it is. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for your channel. I wanted to ask if psychic ability runs in families. It seems like paranormal phenomenon or experiences, abductions, are all passed down in families or seem to happen in certain family groups. Do you think that there's truth to this? In your experience, why does it seem like things with the psychic realm are connected through families? If so, why do you and other psychics that train say that psychic ability is available to all? Good question. It's a little bit of nature versus nurture, right? Have you ever heard of that comparison? Nature being really genetics, DNA, kind of like what you come in with, or nurture, what you're nurtured with, the culture and the environment that you grow up in. And I think it's a little bit of both. I'm gonna answer the easy answer and say yes all the way around, which is, yes, I do think that it is genetically connected. Actually, you know me, I'm a science buff. I love science because I truly believe that our psychic phenomenon is just the science that we have yet to language and understand. So the more that we're on the cutting edge with our metaphysical science and noetic science, the more that we begin to express and language and translate what those of us in the intuitive world have always been saying, but have been kind of shunned as non-scientific or woo-woo or kind of just out there and ungrounded. So I'm always keeping up with the scientific community. And last year there was a study done, and you're gonna have to excuse me because I am not a scientist, so I don't remember all the technicals about it. But basically, they did a study pretty much on this exact question because they were finding that a lot of families, and some of it was locale based, meaning they still lived in the same area when it came to paranormal phenomenon, seeing UFOs, accounts of abductions, and they wondered, was this something in the DNA passed down genetically that was attracting off-world planetary attention from aliens visiting them, or was it the location itself, that maybe it was a hotspot or a portal, or was there something kind of more to it? They were finding that famed psychics typically had others in their family that were also known to have similar abilities. And I know in my own case, that's true. That's true for me. My grandfather was known as a tracker, and my father's side is Cherokee. My father's father helped a lot of police to find people, and that was one of his skills. Now, in the Native community as a tracker, this was often a really valued perception, and so it was trained also because it was valuable for food, for animals, for sustenance, for life. And so over many generations, the trackers were very highly trained and skilled. So there's a lot of nurture put into that. They were nurtured out that skill. However, you can't deny the fact that that was my grandfather, and then here I turn up as a working shaman and psychic and seer, metaphysician, remote viewer, and doing all of these things. And if you know anything about me or have been with me for a while, I did work in the private sector, and I did work for the government, and I did work contract work for finding and missing person, and a lot of homicide, and a lot of typical work in the regular world for a psychic when I began. And so it kind of begs the question. So back to my point, they did a survey, or not a survey, they did a study where, and this is published, but this was last year that it was published, and they did the study over several years, but they looked at familial, let me say it right, genes and DNA structure. And so they took the genome and they broke it down with families of those that were working psychics, that were known psychics. And within that study, they did find that there was a particular gene that had a mutation, a significant mutation. I think it was 80% of the psychics had that gene mutation in their family bloodline. So there was an identifiable trait that they could say was linked to psychic ability or metaphysical connection. And in particular, that gene, and I believe it was gene 18 chromosome, I'm going to say 7. I'm remembering this, but really I'm tuning into this, to be honest. However, and this was a non-protein coded gene. So they were looking at all these different genomes, and this one popped up, but it did have enough regularity to show a significant finding. And that was published. And I thought that was fascinating because someone, first of all, is recognizing that this may be true, that we need to scientifically study this. And I am so grateful for those that are on the fringe as scientists and geneticists, and those that are willing to look seriously and do some research and get some data on this. I know they've also done studies on mediums, studying the brain waves, studying doing different brain scans, showing different areas of the brain that light up, that turn on, that turn off, that have activity. to see if they're truly channeling or if they're utilizing their regular brain function. And science has shown that certain areas in the brain turn off when other areas turn on. And one of those areas that's fascinating is personality turns off. So when the person is channeling, they are not expressing from their personality. Anyways, there's a lot of phenomenal studies out there if you know how to research them. And the internet has made a lot of this very readily available to those that are truly, sincerely seeking and want to know the science of it. So anyway, there is a definite connection when it comes to the science of the body. Now, that being said, and I'm going to go another scientific I'm going to explain it in another scientific way. Even if you have this psychic gene mutation, okay, in your family, and the familial lineage shows that within your genome, that may be the case, but that does not mean that you cannot turn on latent DNA, right? This is epigenetics. So the study of epigenetics has found that within our genome, within our junk DNA, and this is where that gene was found, by the way, in what was labeled junk DNA, which is obviously not junk. It's just not necessarily active. But we have found scientifically that we may have particular genes, but they may not be expressed. Okay, they studied this in twins, like why certain twins have differences in the gene expression when they actually have the exact same DNA replica. So why is it that certain genes turn on? Why is it that certain genes are unexpressed versus expressed? And this is the study of epigenetics, the power of what turns them on and what does not. And they have found that you still have the power to express certain genes that may be latent. So this answers your second question as to why do psychics always say that anyone can be trained or anyone can learn their psychic gifts or to turn on their psychic gifts, because I always say that. And if you've been with me for a while, I preach it, I teach it, I walk it. You can turn it off, and I am living proof of that also, because if you know my story and my history, I was getting premonitions as a child all the time. It was just my waking mental world, is that I would see something happen in my clairvoyance with premonition, and it would be everyday things. You know, what channel was about to come on the TV next, an argument that my brothers were going to have over, you know, who was going to sit in the front seat. I would see it and then it would happen. I would see it and this was just my normal brain. I thought this was normal, right? But then I started getting annoyed because people wouldn't listen to me when I would forewarn them of negative things that were coming. You shouldn't do that. You're going to get in an argument. You're going to cut your finger. You shouldn't do that. The window's going to slam on you and it's going to give you a black eye. Whatever it was that I was telling and warning my family about as a child, they wouldn't listen because I was a child. And I didn't understand that this was psychic or premonition. So I just was the bossy little kid. And I got frustrated with spirit. I got frustrated with the energy that was flowing through me with my abilities, that they had no sense of purpose or direction for me because they were unutilized. And I had no training in what that was. We had no formal education. This is why I believe so strongly in psychic education, because if we know what it is, if we have a word for that, a language for that, if we have technique and training around it, it's not overwhelming. It's a utilization of a skill, and it's very useful in this world that is spirit before it's material. So I turned it off, and that is literally epigenetics at its core, being able to turn off and turn on particular DNA at our, just by wishing it so, by intending it so, by intense focus from the mental, emotional, and soul realm, by lining up your mind, your heart, and your soul in terms of a resonant energy. This is what we say when we talk about intention, or what I always say, like, mean it. If you're saying something, you mean it with the totality of your being. When you do that, that is the power of the physical and the non-physical coalescing. This is what people talk about when they talk about manifestation, when they talk about materialization, intention, all of that. So I was able to turn it off and then later turn it back on. So if you are wondering, can this be trained? 100% absolutely. Is there something in the family in terms of DNA, or certain, maybe people have a leg up that have been trained in this through generations? This is also true. And isn't this a perfect example of the way that spirit works also? Because we are not beings that are single-minded. We are multidimensional beings, which means that both can absolutely be true. We can house capabilities in our DNA, and yet we can activate new capabilities within our DNA. So you still have the power. Don't let this take away any power if you have nothing in your family, or no one has told you in your family. In your ancient DNA, you definitely have the capability in your genes, because us as humans, when we first began in our perfected form, had all capabilities of our multidimensional connections. So you better believe that we can activate and turn that on once again. And part of that practice is realigning with your chakras, your energetic systems, clearing out your energetic body, getting rid of that debris, reconnecting with your sense of self. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can definitely do it. All power to you, mama. All right, I'm going to sign off here and say goodbye. We will talk again next week with another video. Blessings.